Hello, hello, and welcome to the very first Take Charge Tuesday. I am super excited to be with you today to be talking about the very important topic of pitching and really helping to get us all in the right mode for 2022. I'm going to be saying 2020 or 1997. I don't know. I'm always like a 2019 person. I'll say that one forever. But either way, 2022, getting us ready for the year that we are currently in. Hello. Oh, thanks, Alex. Love it too. I am like loving the whole take charge. It's really time for us to get a handle on things. Okay, people. I think too often, not too often, but mostly because of 2020, we all just kind of let things slide, and we slid right into distraction and sometimes into destruction. And so, Take Charge Tuesday is all about like grabbing the reins, pulling it back in, and tightening it up so that we can have some really good results going forward with our businesses. So, hi everyone who's watching. Hello to everyone who will watch the replay. I'm really excited to be with you all here today. So, again, Take Charge Tuesday is like my version of, really helping us to get an idea of what are some of the fundamentals that we need to get back to. All of them are going to be results oriented because I am a very results oriented person. And by the way, who am I? I am Lindsay. Hi, it's nice to meet you. I am, or see you again. I am the Grow with Google digital coach for Northeast Ohio, and I'm also the founder and CEO of Predictable Results Marketing. And I always like to say I'm also like a PhD failure and an educator by training, but I continue to do it because I love it. Like I love teaching people things, and I want to work with you to kind of teach you everything that I know and the things that I've learned over the years the very hard way so that you don't have to learn things the hard way. You can learn them the easier way by learning from my mistakes. So today's Take Charge Tuesday is all about pitching. And although we do have a workshop immediately following this Take Charge Tuesday, and almost every Tuesday there's going to be a workshop following, but this one definitely is going to be one that you want to attend because we are going to be practicing the things that I'm going to talk about right now. So as far as taking charge of your pitch, which is what today is all about, I want us to consider a couple of really important things, like really three things and then kind of a fourth thing. So the first thing that you want to consider when you are getting yourself in the right mindset for pitching is to decide what you're going to focus on. And I think that this is a challenge for most of us because we do so many things, especially if you are a service-based business. Like Eric and I were just sitting down brainstorming different types of like national brand service-based businesses, and there just are not a lot. Like they're mostly franchises because service-based businesses are so difficult. We all do them. The majority of us are in them. But it's really challenging because marketing them is hard because you are doing a lot of things for a lot of people most of the time when you're running a service-based business. If you are a very, very, very good service-based business, you have kind of honed in on what it is that you do, and maybe you just do one thing for one very specific group of people. But most of us do a variety of things. Now, that is where the focus part comes in as a challenge, because you may do 2, 3, 4 different things. And when you are either pitching yourself for financing, pitching yourself for a loan, pitching yourself directly to customers, or just when someone says to you, what do you do in a, networking conversation, whenever you're doing that, if you are a service-based business, the temptation is to kind of word vomit all over everyone and say, oh, well, I do, and then make an entire list of things. And unfortunately, doing that is really not going to get anyone anywhere because no one wants to hear everything that you do when they ask you, what do you do? Matter of fact, most people don't actually want to know what you do. They want to know other things. They just use that term as kind of a shorthand. And I will use something that I used to say in college as an example. And people used to look at me like I was crazy, unless they were also of my like mindedness. But I would, in college, I would ask people, what do they do? I was like, oh, well, what do you do? And we would obviously all be collegiates, like we might even be in a classroom at the time. And when I would ask them what do they do, a lot of times they would look at me like I was crazy, and I'm like, no, what do you do other than go to school? Like, what I mean by that is, what is your focus? What is something that you care about that you do voluntarily, like when you're just not in class? And once I said that, a lot of people were like, oh, well, I'm in the equestrian club and I really love riding and I take care of horses like every single day. Me. Then that's what you do. It doesn't matter if you're an accounting major, because that's what you do. You are like an equestrian at heart. You spend your time there. And so what we really want to start thinking about when it comes to answering that question of what do you do, or even getting ready for a very formal pitch, is narrowing it down and trying to focus on the one thing that is either going to be the most important thing for the person that you are like talking to, or something that is going to be the most general thing that anyone on the street might care about for your specific business. So that is how you want to think about what your focus should be. If you are, again, just out in the world, you do not want to focus on trying to, or try to say everything literally that you do ever. That is not productive. Well, what you do want to do is think through, what is something that I can say that is a general enough answer to this question so that someone might actually be able to understand what I do enough to ask more questions, but not so, not going to list out everything that I do. That is the biggest challenge. We don't want to do that because it gets overwhelming for people and they don't care. They don't actually care. They don't care about that part. They care about the human part. They don't care about the list of like 85 different classes that you teach. No one cares about that. So what they really want to know is what the baseline or what the big overarching thing is that you actually do. Okay. So first things first is we're going to focus. One thing. What's your one thing? And the second thing that we're going to do is be empathetic. So this is a challenge because most of us are not really practicing empathy on a regular basis when it comes to strangers, right? And so we tend to be very non-empathetic to strangers, and we tend to be very empathetic to people that we know. And so what I mean by that is that when you are in a pitching environment, when you are in a position where you are meeting strangers at a networking event or any type of environment, here, online, wherever you are, the first thing you might want to do after you have previously, before you even show up, narrow down what it is that you're going to be talking about so that you're never actually saying everything, getting that narrow, focus down. But then after that, you're going to stop and listen. The goal of any sort of interaction should be to figure the other person out so that you can help them as much as you can. But the only way to do that is to be empathetic, is to kind of open yourself up to listening and being aware of what's going on with that person. So that is what we're going to focus on. We're going to decide what our core focus is way before we show up at any meeting, have an idea of what we're going to say to people. Oh, what do you do? And then you have a very specific answer to that question that has very little to do with, the list of features of things. But then after that, if given the opportunity, I would actually ask first so that you can get that empathy, so that you can have some idea of what's going on in someone's life, so that you can have a way, an entry point for you to know enough to continue your conversation in a way that's going to be meaningful to that person. So I want to kind of give an example of what this means, because I know some of you are probably like, what does empathy mean when you're talking about strangers? First things first, I want to give us a really mundane practice that you can do. It is completely mundane. It's something that we can all do, and it's going to make you a better human in general. And that is, I want you to practice, as of today, I want you to practice traffic empathy. Okay, so traffic empathy is the empathy where essentially, if you are a driving human, if you're a person who drives, I want you to imagine that you are the other drivers. You can pick one or two or three on your, next commute or your next drive to Target or wherever you're going. Pick one or two people and actually empathize, like sit in their seat. Imagine yourself driving their Toyota Corolla, their 1987 Toyota Corolla with a busted headlight. I want you to imagine where they are going. I want you to imagine how they feel right now. If they are singing, I want you to imagine what song they are singing to. I want you to feel like you are that person. I want you to put yourself in their shoes, because I think too often we other strangers. And so because we're othering them, it makes it really hard for us to empathize with them when they jump in front of us in traffic, which is the reason why traffic empathy ends up being a really good challenge, because it's hard. But it's also completely regular, right? So it's kind of hard to do, but it is a regular thing. Like you're regularly in traffic, you can kind of practice this on a regular basis. The idea is think about what someone else is experiencing and not just thinking about yourself and how you are experiencing something. So now take that same practice of traffic empathy, which I'm going to help you, I want you to do on a regular basis. Just start doing it. And then apply that to whatever experience you're in the moment where you're pitching. So if you are at a networking event, I want you to stop feeling how you feel for a second and imagine that you are the other person. I want you to imagine that you are the person talking to you. And I don't want you to imagine it so that you can think about how that person is thinking about you. That is not what I mean at all. What I want you to do is imagine how that person is thinking and feeling so that you can give them a better version of your pitch, right? You want to make your pitch as empathetic to that human person that you're talking to as possible. You don't want to project, meaning I don't want you to just like rattle off 85 assumptions. Well, I see you're a little pudgy, so it looks like you might want to lose weight and you might want to do this and you might want to I'm not saying that, because that's not empathy, that's judgment. I want you to literally try to think as if you are that person, which usually requires you talk. You like have a conversation and you're listening and you're paying attention to what they're saying so that you can empathize with them. Because if you can't empathize, a pitch is never going to fly. You're never going to be able to give a good pitch if you can't empathize with the people who are in the room. Because you essentially, the reason why empathy ends up being the thing is because the second thing that any pitch needs to do is be tailored to the human you're pitching to. And the only way to do that is to be truly empathetic. So if you are crafting a pitch for funding, or if you're drafting a pitch for a bank, you want to be thinking, okay, what is this banker experiencing right now? We're currently thinking about all sorts of financial decisions in our household. And we are talking to all sorts of humans about these financial decisions. And a lot of this does require me think, okay, what is that person experiencing? Not like, what is my point and how do I get it across to them? But really, what is that person's experience? What are they needing from me in this kind of experience, this exchange that we're having? Not what baseline information, but what overall is their goal? What is their objective? And how do I help them get to their goal? Because if you can help other people get where they're trying to go, then it'll always help you get where you're trying to go. And so you want to start out with empathy and go from that perspective, right? So first, you're going to, before you ever get to a meeting, you're going to focus down. You're going to think, what is my general thing that I could say to someone when they ask me, what do I do? And then from there, you're going to use empathy to start figuring out what that person needs instead of just, again, rattling off everything that you do. What does that person actually need? And again, this works for funding. And if you are like me, a person who watches Shark Tank, I don't watch it religiously, but I do watch it on a decent enough basis. Like whenever I find myself in a hotel room, it's on. I want you to think about how people who are successful at Shark Tank tailor their pitches to the people in the room. right? So they don't walk in there and have no idea who Lori is, what she does. And whenever they do, whenever someone has no idea, or at least acts like they have no idea who Lori is and what she does, people are always like, are you seriously pitching and you're asking for money from Mark Cuban when you have Lori on this panel? Like, it is crazy to me whenever I watch the show and I see people who are not reading the room, like they're not paying attention to the fact that Mr. Wonderful always wants some sort of dividend. He needs a return immediately on his investment. And so if you have something that can't do that, you know he's out. Don't worry about focusing on him. And so I want you to be thinking about that. Like, if you have to run Shark Tank in your head before you have a pitching conversation, do it. But the whole point is you need to be thinking about the other person. It's not about you, because you can't get what you want unless you give people what they want first, right? Right? Okay. So first focus, then empathize. And then the last thing that you want to do before we kind of get into the kind of touchy-feely or next steps type things, the last thing you want to do is focus on the benefits. I personally also love Mr. Wonderful, Alex. He is my favorite. He is the only Shark Tank. He's not the only one. He's close. He's one of two that I actually follow on Instagram, because everybody else I pretty much don't like. But him, he's hilarious and actually quite entertaining in real life. But you want to focus on the benefit to them. So empathy is about who they are. The benefits is about your products and services, right? And so you want to, after you figured out who they are, and after you've taken the room, temperature of the room, and you figured out what people actually want, and you say, okay, this investor wants that, that investor wants this one wants this, that you kind of get an idea of what that looks like. Then, and you can do that again, if you're going into an investor pitch, you should be looking these people up in advance, because every single one of them has information online about them, every single one. And so you should be looking them up in advance, having some idea of who they are. I even do that at conferences. When I go to conferences, I try to look up all the speakers so that I'm never like walking up to a speaker and just being like, oh my God, that was such a good talk, and I haven't anything else to say to them. Like, you need to have more information. So finding out as much as you can about the people who you're going into the room with is going to be really useful. It's going to help with that empathy thing, but it will also help for you to be able to tailor the benefits offer to be really, really associated with what they actually need and want, right? So instead of, again, either making whole cloth assumptions based on air, or deciding that, it's more important that I list out feature after feature after feature, because if I list enough features, then they'll find something that they want in that list, which I feel like is kind of what us small business owners do sometimes when we're pitching. We're just like, I'm just going to run off my list of pitching of like features. It's got, 4 tires and they're all black and the hubcaps are shiny, and you can, it's got 4-wheel drive, and it's got leather seats, and it's got a leather steering wheel, and so we're just feature. It's got LED lights. It's got just going on and on. And unfortunately, don't nobody care about that. Like, very few people are buying a car because of the tires and the leather steering wheel. Like, there are so many other way more emotional reasons why we're buying things. And those emotional reasons are where the benefits come in, right? So why would someone care about LED lights? Why would someone care about the tires? Why would someone care about the steering wheel being leather? So instead of saying that the steering wheel is leather, the exercise is to say, why would someone care if the steering wheel is leather? Oh, well, because it gives you a much better grip, and, it helps you to be able to, drive, or better yet, it will help your newbie kids, the people who are now going to be driving your car, when it's time for them to start driving, they're going to have a better grip. It's better for people with smaller hands. So if your wife is driving your car, she'll be able to navigate. Whatever the reason is why someone might want a leather steering wheel, that's what you tell them about. You don't tell them that the steering wheel is leather, because that is not something that they care about. Most of us don't actually care. Even as far as like food service and things like that, people are like, well, this cupcake has 120 calories. And I'm like, if the cupcake is not good, it does not matter that it has 120 calories. And so I need to know that it is a carrot cake cupcake that has pecans and not walnuts. And when that is, again, that's a benefit that sounds like a feature, but it's more benefit if you have any taste buds whatsoever. Fight me in the comments, people. Fight me in the comments. I am pecans over walnuts all day, every day. Okay. And so, but that is what I mean by like picking out the things that are going to be important to someone. And even if you do have to use a feature like pecans or walnuts, turning that into a benefit, something that people can actually care about, is what we want to do when we're pitching. So you may not have a thing that you're selling that is particularly fascinating or sexy or whatever, but that does not mean that you can't basically put things together in a way that is going to be useful to people. Like explain how the feature is useful to them, not just how it is, a thing that they can have, right? You can have a feature, but a benefit is useful. Okay. A feature is just something you hold in your hand. If you have any problems with differentiating the two, and a lot of people do, features you hold in your hand, benefits you hold in your heart, benefits you hold in your mind. Benefits are something that are intangible. And so that's what we want to be thinking is what are the benefits to people, not just what are the features. The more features you sell, the less you win every single time. Now, if you are in a real pitching environment where you have done the things that I'm talking about, the final step is to create some sort of bridge. Like, how do I get the person from now they know who I am, I have empathized with them, which means that I've likely made some sort of relationship. I've built something. They feel something about me. I feel something about them. And then you have given them some benefits to what you do, to your products and services that you're offering. And now they're interested. You've taken them along this little journey and now they're interested. The next thing that you need to do is every time, everywhere you go, you need to know what the offer is. What is it that you want? Right? Because you need to be taking that person from this part of the conversation to some sort of transactional relationship. Now, that could be, discovery call. It could be any number of things. It doesn't really matter what that thing is. You obviously don't want to just be like, marry me right now, but you do want to have something that is going to take them from stranger to potential customer. And you need to have that something ready to roll at the end of the benefits conversation. So you should come into all of these kind of pitches with an idea of what it is you want. Because the last thing you want to do is waste a pitch opportunity by not having an ask. It is massive, massive waste. That's just some wasteful nonsense right there. So always have something that you're asking for. Okay. So that is it for now. I wanted to make sure that we go over the core features of pitching like a pro. Focus, empathy. So be empathetic and then have some benefits. Benefits is number 3, benefits over features all day, every day. And then the fourth thing is always have an ask. Always, always, always have an ask. Don't go to a networking event without an ask. What do you want from people? Not what do you want, like everybody's going to give it to you, but what do you want? Like you should know what the purpose of you being there is, right? So go into every pitch with those 4 things and you will come out with money, because that's what we're here for. We're here like we're not here on this planet for that, but that's what we're here as business owners. That's what we want. And that's what I want you to have. I want you to be making money. And so we want to hone that pitch and get it better. If you are interested in honing your pitch and getting a little bit better, let me drop into the chat a link. I have a workshop coming up in 6 minutes where we're going to be talking about this and we're going to be practicing it. So I want to encourage you all to join us in that workshop. It's going to be about an hour. I am a huge proponent of practice makes perfect. And I also think that it is really useful to get feedback from an environment. And so this is an online workshop, but it is also a very friendly environment where people are always in the chat, just having a blast and really communicating effectively with each other. And so I encourage you to join us so that you can get some of that knowledge, get some of that information, and get some practice in on making your pitches even better. So, with that, I'm going to roll right on into that workshop, and I hope to see you there. Oh, wait, I have a closing, I have an outro. Thank you so much for watching. And I am so excited for Take Charge Tuesday, and I will see you all next week. Bye.